just gonna go down in time. This is actually makes it happen.
Great stuff there. Oh, Dicey.
Oh my God, J-Mo, the champion of this one.
Oh, Asano! He gets the triple off the rocket as the full. Oh, what's cracking, y'all? What's cracking? Baby, I'm fired up and ready to go. I'm getting goosebumps after that video. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the very first closed qualifiers of the VALORANT Champions Tour. I'm Esports Doug, and I'll be your captain on this maiden voyage. And with me, my co-captain, who, contrary to popular belief, is actually named after a city in the state of Kentucky, not because his name is Alex at all. That would make no sense whatsoever. It's Lex. Lex, baby.
Complete fabrication, man. I'm feeling good, Doug. I'm excited for my debut Dougcast. It's going to be an exciting day of matches, and certainly I think, you know, you and I were talking to the pre-show a bit about, you know, which matchups we're looking forward to, and there are quite a few. I'm excited to get started.
We won't have to wait for long. We have a great day ahead of us, a great 4 days ahead of us, really. $50,000 are on the line. You've got close qualifier 2 spots available and up for grabs as well. There's a whole lot to be claimed across these 8 teams that are going to be duking it out this week. But you know, the format, I've seen it on Twitter, I've seen it on Reddit. A lot of people have said, man, this format's confusing. What are these teams playing for? How do they play into the next qualifier? How do you qualify for the Masters? Folks, I have good news. I've got the smooth and sultry voice of Rivington Bislin III, who's put together a video for us to break everything down. Take a look.
Welcome to the VALORANT Champions Tour, a year-long tournament circuit featuring the best players and teams from all over the world, culminating in a global championship event, VALORANT Champions. Each stage begins with challengers, where teams compete in regional tournaments for a place at Masters. Teams who compete in Masters events will earn points that help them qualify for Champions. And Champions is where the best teams from around the world compete on a global stage, where the art of greatness is on full display. And one team will be crowned 2021 VALORANT Champions.
Much further, can we just pause for a moment and talk about the fact that this game hasn't been out for a year at this point? We already have a year-long program established that's got multiple opportunities for up-and-comers, for established pros, a Worlds tournament at the end of the year. Like, oh, I mean, what's not to like?
There is so much to look forward to in 2021, and frankly, like, if you're a player, sure, a lot of these events that we've seen and kind of fanned over in the last several months, and certainly towards the end of 2020, VALORANT Esports is really starting to get hot. And, you know, as these teams improve, as people start to figure out the game even more, you know, when it comes to VALORANT Esports, I can't imagine a more sanctimonious and certainly, you know, hyped up, exciting feature circuit where these players have a chance to finally, you know, be playing on an international stage at some point this year. And you know, this is the beginnings of that, you know, qualifying into Masters, eventually, you know, trying to make it the distance and be a pro VALORANT player. Like, this is where you leave it all on the line. This is where you're not holding anything back. You're not saving strats. This is where we're going to get the best of the best, duking it out, trying to make it to the next stage.
We are spoiled rotten. Let's take a look one more time at the format. We'll take a look at schedules. We'll take a look at prize pools. We'll take a look at everything that we have teed up. But for now, let's take a look at the format one more time, just in case you missed how Riv broke it down. We've got 3 stages. Stage 1, which is where we are right now, is going to consist of 3 challenger weekends. The first one is, again, happening right now, which function as a closed qualifiers to determine who it is that's going to advance, who's going to qualify for the Masters event. They're weekly open qualifiers, as you guys saw just a couple of days ago, which determines which teams are going to be competing in the close qualifiers. And then in that, you had single elimination format. It was best of 3 for tournament play, best of 5 for grand finals, and that was a banger. But that has set the stage for where we are now. What we have going on this weekend, which, as you guys see, there's the schedule. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're going to kick things off with the upper quarters and lower bracket round 1 today. Full day of Valorant ahead of us tomorrow. We're going to get back into it with the upper semifinals and a lower bracket round 2. And then Saturday, upper finals, lower semis, lower finals. And last but not least, on Sunday, $20,000, folks. $20,000 for first place. That's going to be settled in the grand finals. So let's take a look at the bracket. We're going to talk about what teams we have in front of us. Lex, you know I'm going to have to press you. Tell me which teams you are particularly looking at. But from top to bottom, Immortals and XSET actually going on right now on the sister stream. NRG up against Gen.G, which we're going to be calling. Envy and Anbox, and then Sentinels and LG in a rematch that's guaranteed to be a banger. Now, Lex, 8 teams. If you had to put your thumb on one team and you're like, damn, these are the guys I want to watch, who is it?
Well, I mean, Doug, this is something where I was struggling to come up with an answer in the pre-show, and I'm going to struggle now. I can't just pick one. I would say that of these 4 matchups that we have, you've got XSET, NRG, Anbox, and LG, all kind of rising out of the tier 2 end of the spectrum, right? Kind of proving themselves in recent events and definitely, you know, stepping their game up month after month. I can't imagine 4 better matchups to start the day with, but I'm really keeping my eyes on LG in that Sentinels matchup because that roster has improved so much. They have a recent addition of Dre that I think has just really rounded out that team nicely. And certainly Sentinels, who, you know, are still regarded, and I think I would give them this credit as being one of the best, if not the best team in NA still, right? If LG is threatening that throne, a tier 2 risen team, so to speak, I'm anxious to see whether or not they can get it done here in a close qualifier.
It's going to be good. Again, it was a rematch, of something that went down just a couple of days ago. And if you've been following the Valorant space for a little while now, you'll know my dear friend Veli has been preaching the good word of Luminosity for many months now. And people called him crazy. I still think he's crazy about some stuff, but people have been calling him crazy for a long time. But you cannot sleep on LG anymore. I agree with you. I think that's one team I want to keep a close eye on. XSET's another one. Anbox, like these 3 squads, they're defying the odds, right? Like they're making things happen. But we do have one match in front of us before we start talking about those, and that is Gen.G up against NRG, which, as we mentioned, we're going to be calling here to open up the entire tournament. Now, Lex, as we think about these 2 teams, as we, you know, we've spent so much time talking about them, let's talk about their rosters first, right? Let's start with Gen.G. We've got Guiman, Mikael, Kusta, Win, Sean. What is it about that squad, in your opinion, that can make Gen.G so special?
See, Gen.G to me is a little bit of a mystery. We have a almost a storied roster in Valorant. They're definitely early on in the game, you know, leaving beta, they were a top team in North America, and I think they've slipped a bit, and that's no like slight to them as players. It's just they've undergone some roster changes. They've definitely shown us a few different looks when it comes to their comps. But I think the recent addition of Kusta is the big question mark for me. You know, I think a lot of people are looking at him like, well, let's see what he can do in Valorant. But that guy is one of the most special gamers that I've seen touch an FPS game across multiple titles now at this point. I expect him to thrive in Valorant. You know, you add that firepower to the addition of, you know, GMD, Sean, who's one of the most, you know, scary duelists right now in North America. I think this Gen.G roster is on the rise and certainly is going to get scarier and scarier as weeks pass. Now, the big question mark is, can they get it here done today, Doug?
Oh, I think that's a very good point. And, you know, you mentioned Gen.G from early on. When you talk about teams that were willing to innovate and willing to try things differently and think outside of the box, so of the way that people generally approach the game, early on in the life cycle of Valorant, it was Gen.G. Gen.G were the ones who were trying things differently, who were trying different compositions, and as you said, have fallen off. But we also have NRG. Man, this NRG roster, they've also undergone a couple of roster changes. Lex, these guys are the real deal, man.
Yeah, and I think this kind of goes towards, I don't remember which event it was, but when I first started watching them play, a lot of these players had just transitioned over to Valorant. They were very kind of iffy on whether or not they would even be good or successful at all. But in my heart of hearts, Okay, and this kind of goes towards my Counter-Strike background. You got a roster with Daps on it. You know, he's building his team. Those guys are going to be successful. Maybe not now, maybe not in weeks, but it's only been a couple months and they're already here, right? Like they've already done that much. And I remember, you know, I think I was listening to Mike during the pre-show, kind of speaking to that, where a lot of people were, NRG, you know, they'll probably be pretty good, but no one expected, and certainly I don't think I did, and maybe that's my own fault as someone who expects kind of a slower progress out of these rosters, where 100 Thieves, you know, NRG, these teams are quickly rising to their skill cap, their skill potential, and certainly are improving every time we see them. So NRG, they're looking better and better, and I expect them to continue on that trend.
We'll have the opportunity to see if they can continue to capitalize on that momentum in just a few moments. Again, they're going to be going up against Gen.G. This is a rematch of what we saw in the open qualifiers. And look, we can have the conversation if it was for seeding and were they trying and different compositions and that whole thing. Look, at the end of the day, they played, NRG looked good, they tried different compositions too, and they were able to make relatively quick work of Gen.G, to be honest. So Lex, I know that you and I, even in the days leading up to this, because we're nerds, have been reviewing a lot of film and we've been talking about the matchups. What is it that you need to see out of Gen.G here that's different from what we saw in the past for them to be able to go toe-to-toe with NRG?
I think I spoke to Kusta being the recent addition, didn't have a whole lot of time to practice with them moving into their first event. And, you know, when you have a player like that who's, I'll say new to the game, you know, we have automatic switching over to T1, a lot of different news from these CS players making the we won't get into that right now, but Kusta kind of flew under the radar where not a lot of people were talking about him in kind of a grandiose sense as being some incredible player the way I'm describing him now. So I think, you know, him fitting into this roster kind of gelling a bit, you know, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that I'll give any roster with a new roster change. Weeks, months, sometimes before you gel. And certainly when it comes to him kind of like getting to the point of being the player that he can be, you know, I want to see Sean, I want to see Kusta, GMD, all these guys fragging out. I mean, you look at the numbers. Sean's one of those guys who's like plus 30 in a lot of these series. Yeah. So how are they not winning? And I think that just goes towards, you know, the strategy maybe isn't quite there yet. They haven't had time to fix mistakes and kind of trust that process. So Gen.G, I don't really know what it is that they're lacking specifically in their losses, but, you know, I think they need some time, and they've had a little bit here to prepare. So, you know, we'll see.
There's no time quite like the present. Folks, we have picks and bans for the maps just around the corner. Let's pull those up, take a look and see where this series is going to be settled. As you can see, Gen.G bans Split, NRG bans Ascent, and that leaves what we have in front of us. Bind as map number 1. NRG is going to be starting off on the defensive side, and then Haven, map 2, where Gen.G is going to be on D, and then map 3, if needed, is going to be Icebox, where NRG will start off on the defensive side, and it will be up to Gen.G to prove their mettle. Folks, while we continue to break down this matchup and see what we have in store for us, do me a favor. And production team, if I'm jumping the gun here, I apologize. Please don't hate me. But I believe there is a Twitch chat poll that's going on right now. And if there isn't, well, there was the queue. Go ahead and drop it in your chat. Go ahead and drop it in the chat. Excuse me. Make your votes known. Let us know who you think is going to be walking away, advancing to winner's bracket round 2, and who's going to be forced into the gauntlet of the loser's bracket. Lex, we've talked a lot about Gen.G. We've talked about the roster, the addition of Kusta, the additional fragging power that Sean brings to the table. But let's spend a little bit more time knowing that the maps are in front of us. Let's spend a little bit more time talking about NRG here, right? And let's just start with Bind, okay? In the last few meaningful matches, and I use that phrase very carefully because I think there's some noise to pick through as we analyze the history of these squads. Last few meaningful matches for NRG. On Bind, they're sitting at 3-1 with wins over Gen.G, as we mentioned, Carpe Noctem, which, by the way, did make it to like round. They were very close to qualifying for this very weekend. So whether or not they're good, not good, I think that track record speaks for itself. And then they had a loss against Dignitas, but then another win over LG. That one went the distance. It was 19-17 at the Winter Champs. What are your thoughts here as you think about this matchup on Bind specifically for NRG?
You know what? Like, I think NRG's issues kind of stem from a few different places when it comes to like whether or not they can find consistency at the highest level. And I think they're starting to get that traction, as I mentioned. But when it comes to bind, I mean, I look to a guy like, if you're gonna run a jet op on bind, like Shanks, is he finding the entries? Is he finding picks? Is he actually getting that value out of that agent pick? And I feel like on that map in particular, you have a lot of opportunity to kind of have that level of impact. I think it was Sam running the Rays, like having your duelists perform on bind, finding entries, being aggressive on defense. Those are options that some agent comps just won't allow, right? But if you're going to run this hyper aggressive, double duelist, triple duelist, whatever it may be, running the op, finding the payout consistently is going to lead towards, finding consistency as a team. And so I think, when we're looking at their meaningful matchups, even this when they 2-0 Gen.G in the last event, whether or not it was, a super serious matchup, we had some troll comps going maybe on both sides, but NRG still looked very crisp and very confident in that series. And so, you got guys like EU, Daps, Infinite kind of rounding out that roster where EU can have incredible games. Daps is certainly solid in the clutch. Infinite is kind of one of those other question marks for me where after making the transition from Counter-Strike, I haven't seen him, light up the statistics the way other players may have, or maybe you expect him to. So when it comes to a map like Bind, and I just pulled up the series. I believe he was playing the Sky in the last time that these two teams played, and we were talking a little bit about, Sky a little bit earlier today, and whether or not we'll see her today in some of these matchups. But that could kind of lend itself towards that inconsistency, right? If you're changing your agents up, you're not really sure how you want to play the map on a match-to-match basis. So I'm curious to know, is NRG going to come in with a solid game plan? I expect Daps to be fully prepared for this matchup, possibly even more so than the side of Gen.G. And I think he's one of those IGLs that is going to control a game as best he can, and that is something that is going to yield success against a new roster like Gen.G, where they maybe don't have enough prep time to really bring all their firepower possible against the likes of a jet op with Shanks, or I mentioned Sam, who I think every time I've seen him play, he has been showing me something else that I hadn't seen before. Kind of progressing that talent, pushing the envelope a bit when it comes to whether or not he's going to be a top talent in the game. And, when we're talking about, close qualifiers and actually advancing out of here towards Masters, this is where you leave it all on the line, as I said before. And I can't wait to see what NRG has for us.
Yeah, there are no excuses. You mentioned not being able to wait to see what NRG has for us. As I was doing some more digging throughout the last couple matches, there was one thing in particular that stood out, right? And it falls under this larger umbrella of NRG being willing to try different compositions, right? Daps will run anything from a Sage to a Bram on Bind. But what really caught my eye, and I hope we see this because I'm going to nerd out, Shanks has not shied away from playing Yoru. He hasn't shied away from it at all, so it'll be really interesting. I've been so excited to see what Yoru can be in a very disciplined, like very cohesive setting. You can have your opinions on solo queue, and honestly, on Twitter amongst the professional players, the sentiment has been a mixed bag. Some people love Yoru, other people think he's way too loud. I was talking to AGM about this 2 days ago, yesterday, that the agent just has too many sound cues and he doesn't pack enough punch to be worthwhile in a composition, but NRG certainly seemed to at least consider it.
Listen, Doug, I can only speculate just as much as you are, perhaps, that will we see Yoru at all this week? And truth is, I don't think so. I don't think that's likely.
Oh, come on.
But, and I don't mean to rain on your parade too hard right away. It's just like, I don't think these teams have all fleshed this out well enough to be confident in picks. That's not to say that teams won't do it anyway. And hats off to, I mean, honestly, I have mad respect for these teams that are like we saw TSM get eliminated while running a Sky in a best of 3 and kind of paying the price for it in the last event. So I got to wonder whether or not teams are willing to take that risk again. However, and this is kind of like deviating from Yoru a bit specifically, I'm actually, and this is kind of one of the more intriguing things that has been occurring over the past couple of weeks in North America, at least. And if you watch Twitch streams in Valorant regularly, you will know exactly what I'm talking about, where a lot of the more prominent, ranked grinders, pro players, whatever, that are streaming the game have been running Sky both in solo queue and in team comps, and certainly, you know, in the last events, we've seen her get brought out at times on some maps, but not others. I'm anxious to see whether or not some of the teams that had, you know, middling success, I'd say, whether or not they can bring out a Sky and actually have big impact with it. And that's not to say that, you know, some of the really talented players that are playing her aren't already playing well, right? Crashies comes to mind. You know, I mentioned Infinite earlier. Certainly, like amongst the rest of the pro scene, there's plenty of other players that are using that agent. But, you know, a map like Bind, saw a bunch of Sky. Saw her several times amongst several different matchups in the last weekend. So I gotta wonder whether or not that's something that we're going to see consistently from many teams, whether or not they're going to move away from it or further towards it. Because I think I really like Sky. There was almost an over dependence on Sova for a while, you know, from a fan standpoint at least. I definitely, okay, arrow back sight, smokes go up, flashes are out. All right, tech sight, and that was just kind of how the executes are running. But people following the dog up, bird flashes, you know, whatever you want to talk about. Hawk out. Like, there's just so much fun involved when it comes to watching people play Sky and kind of meme about it or whatever. And jokes aside, I think she's a powerful agent that has reached, as we're talking about Yoru, like, people have kind of been able to test the waters a bit, see how she can be played and be like, oh, like that's genius. Like, we can actually use that. That's so smart. And there were people, some early innovators for sure, that saw that and tried to implement it with some success. But now that we're on the big stage, it actually matters here. So Yoru, to me, still seems like a little bit more of a risk. Even if you're running it in scrims, you don't necessarily have the same comfort that you might if you've already ran Sky before. So I think we'll see Sky. Not sure about Yoru, Doug.
Well, Lex, and I'm not going to say this for the rest of the tournament because that would be bad on me, but I really hope you're wrong about everything you've said regarding Yoru. For the last few minutes, let's go! Shanks already boasting out the Yoru. You can suck it.
I love it.
Suck it. And we're going to get Sky in the hands of Sam potentially. You see a little hover, but this is already gearing up to be a good one. Ladies and gents, just a few moments away from kicking off this bad boy. Again, 50 grand on the line.
Are
the
they locked
opportunity,
in?
Yeah, all but Sam. There,
I wanted to
now
see
he
Sky
is.
as
He's
well,
gonna
man.
be
I would have
busting
eaten
up.
both points. I would have eaten those words immediately, Doug. But here we are. Yoru, map 1, after Lex just sat here and told you, not going to happen. Teams won't take that risk. $50,000 on the line. NRG don't care. Let's go.
Whew, I'm fired up again. Shanks has been playing it a little bit in conjunction with the Jet and the Reyna throughout the more recent matches. We mentioned Infinite, the ability to play Sky, not going to be an option this time around. And for Gen.G, we'll take a look one more time, but their tournament run up until this point has been pretty standard in 2 regards. Their composition doesn't change, right? By and large, it's consistent. They don't try different things on maps. And that might be because they're holding things back or they're really trying to iron out their defaults. The other thing that's interesting about them is that throughout the entire open bracket, they played 2 maps, Lex. 2. That's it. They managed to avoid Ascent, Icebox, and Split the entire time.
Bind Haven, Bind Haven, Bind Haven.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, variety is the spice of life and all that, but stick to what you're good at, I suppose. And when it comes to the pistol round, we're live, Doug. We're already in the mix. We have a little bit of bathrooms control coming out from NRG, collecting the orbs, a 4-player stack from Gen.G at the A-bomb site. Interesting to see whether or not NRG will be able to scout this out. Excuse me, Gen.G will be able to scout this out. I just had the teams reversed, Doug. We're already screwing up in the first map in the first round. It's all
Listen,
good, man.
it's the excitement of the Yoru. I'm telling you. That's all it is. So let's see how things have broken out so far, because oftentimes, Lex, for pistols, they're hot and heavy right off the bat. But the patience that NRG has shown so far is just, I mean, excuse me, Gen.G, it's impressive.
I want to see whether or not Yoru actually has an impact on pistol. I mean, when we will freak out for sure the moment it happens where we see a Yoru outplay, but meanwhile, Gen.G regrouping back towards the B-bomb site, don't like what they see over our day, and rightfully so. There are still 4 NRG members over here at A. So that's EU over there at the B hallways, immediately scouting out this information. Here's the bomb plant. The rotations will come in. However, on the other side of the map, there is alert coming out from the Omen on GMD. So That will be scouted out immediately by the Yoru from Shanks, but the backhaul L-turn push coming out from Gen.G is successful. Finds one into EU, and now it's a 4-all game. Spike planted.
Kusta had a chance to get something there. He got one. Daps trades it back out, drops things down to a 3v3. The spike has been down. Daps tapping it early on, understanding that he has a little bit of crossfire. Win gets tagged up so bad. He gets pushed in by the Yoru in the hands of Shanks. He's going to get cleaned up, dropping things down to a 1v1. Shanks already managed to get it to half. It's there. He sneaks the defuse right out of under their noses. NRG take the pistol.
Pros don't fake. He picks up a 4-piece on Yoru and sticks the defuse in a 1v1. Yoru legend? Hello? Shanks? Sorry, a 3-piece with an... Oh, okay, there we go. So a 3-piece and a defuse. Regardless, man, that looked really solid from Gen.G. You know, they were able to push off EU immediately, collected the spike, put it down pretty quickly. You know, they didn't waste too much time, but Gen.G unable to hold on the post plant. It looked like when they were taking backhaul control, you know, they could have held on to it. But backing up there, they lose 2 players. I was at a loss for words. I didn't see them backing out of it, but they did. And so, you know, NRG leading things right away with a pistol round win. This will be pretty telling of whether or not, you know, they'll be able to get an early lead with this full save coming out from Gen.G. Just pistols. Get as many kills as they can, and certainly looking for that spike plant, build up their ultimates, and prepare their economy, keep it in check on the side of NRG. And Kusta already finding nice kills onto Daps, win onto Infinite. A bomb site is forfeit, and now it's a 2-on-2, Doug. Spike planted.
Yeah, this has already been a bit more costly than NRG would have liked, as they've dropped a couple of members, and the spike continues to tick away. The problem, too, is a win is certainly worse for Ware. He just has 29 health in a 1v2. He's going to get spotted. Sam gets a nice 2-piece to send him packing and take a 2-0 lead. Now, Lex, we saw in round 1, Guimon, who was playing around in showers over by A, he throws out a couple of smokes. And as soon as those smokes go out to pipes and to heaven, you see the rotations from NRG from the B site through CT spawn, or through the defending spawn, excuse me, to arrive at A, while the hit was on B. The spike was over there the entire time, but this time, when the smokes came out, it was the exact same look, but they fully committed to A. It doesn't pan out anyway, but Gen.G's already showing something a little different early on.
Yeah, as far as establishing a default goes, you know, on pistol, a lot of teams opt to kind of play it slow, read the map a bit, regroup, hit a site together. And certainly when it comes to, you know, showers control, working the A-bomb site, the progression coming out from Gen.G will probably stay relatively consistent. Fight for showers early on, or at least, you know, give that presence, show that look, and already, you know, getting a little bit of utility out at all from the side of NRG. You know, when you're attacking on bind, it can be really tough if you're going into a bomb site where everybody still has their util. There's raise nades, there's, in this case, Yoru flashes, Omen blinds. You know, if all that is available to the defense, certainly Gen.G is going to do what they can to get it out of the hands of NRG early on. And so fighting for bathroom control, you know, collecting the orb consistently, that will be part of the challenge. And one of the question marks that we'll be able to, you know, keep an eye on, Doug, is whether or not NRG decides to contest this at all. How will they do it? And I'm anxious to see whether or not Yoru comes into play here. You know, later on when maybe we're on a gun round and
Out of charges.
And Gen.G is getting a little greedy with the shower control, NRG might play for it. Now that said, you know, falling off from everything we just talked about, there's now long B control. They've kind of shifted back over towards the B side of the map. Left. So Gen.G balancing things out, keeping NRG honest with the rotations, but EU not biting it is already moving back towards A, and so will the spike. So Gen.G, after showing presence today, back towards B and back towards A again. They're poised for an A hit now. The Omen smokes. Dark cover does come out. Pipes in heaven, as you mentioned, but Sam rocks steady at short, finds 2. Kusta trades him out. Now it's a 2-on-4. Gen.G needs to put the spike down, Doug.
Yeah, Lex, I don't know what they're going to have. I don't know that they got it down in time. Yeah, they didn't. The clock ran out. They was just like a nanosecond away from me being able to get the spike down. But the problem about a play style like that, Lex, and I know I've talked about it on broadcast before, is when you draw out utility and you wait that long, when something goes sideways, and you only give yourself 15, 20 seconds to execute something on a site, if things go sideways, it's done. And that's exactly what we saw for Gen.G.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure what the read was. It may have been Shanks, you know, rapidly running away. But that kill from Infinite really is what sealed the deal. I mean, EU was already cheating through defender spawn back towards A. They did have a read. But once the fake is shut down, once you get that kill, you know, okay, this is an A hit. and holding up over at short. That was Sam picking up 2 huge kills with the Spectre. You know, the bonus quickly went the way of NRG at that point. It was just a mop up for Shanks on that Yoru. We haven't seen any cool Yoru plays yet, but he is leading the charge with his frags and this one just there. But there's 2 kills on a Michael and win. I know this is just an eco, but you'll have to see NRG already fighting confidently at these angles, Doug. And certainly you don't want to get too greedy on them, but if all 5 of your players are starting at the defender's side, you're leading, you know, up 4-0 early on in a game, that bodes well for the rest of this half, to say the least.
Yeah, it absolutely does, and especially if you can do so in flawless fashion like that, just a little bit of additional icing on the cake. We talked about Yoru, we saw how excited I was about him. It's been interesting to watch him play. So Shanks, for the last few rounds, has been playing A, and he'll send his gate crash through pipes back to spawn so that he can easily rotate over to B if that's where the hit is. But for the last round, the one we just saw, and the one that we're on the cusp of starting here, it seems like Shanks is much more comfortable, is willing to play on B, right? It's a different look from what we've seen so far.
Well, I think, you know, part of the reason why he'll be more comfortable over with, you know, okay, so take this with a grain of salt, and I'm sure there's actual Yoru mains out there. They're going to be like, oh my God, Lex, you don't know what you're talking about. But I have to imagine the efficiency of his flashes do, you know, long B is just one of those threats. When you have flashes in your comp, this is always going to be scary for Gen.G. And if you're leaving Shanks over here to default, this is something that, you know, NRG on the defender side, and it looks like they might fight for it right now at long B. They may be looking to push down, get an early pick on the lone member of Gen.G defaulting over here. And, you know, we'll find out right away. This is immediately what they're doing. They're pushing down, taking the fight to him. And, you know, Gen.G will react out of this, I imagine. Push up short, maybe, you know, get set up for an A hit. But NRG is certainly a lot more flexible, you know, keeping the Yoru in the composition, being able to teleport to backside of B site if things go awry, right? And even if you're giving that information to Gen.G, like, hey, we pushed long B early on, like, they can't necessarily get that greedy off of it, right? Like, you have the ability to move across the map very quickly, as you mentioned, and certainly if you're masking the rest of that information, you know, for Gen.G, it's almost predictable that they're going to shift one back towards A after showing long B here. So already, all 5 members are grouped up over here towards the B side of the map, and, you know, you got to think that Gen.G at this point, they've got the read. It's an accurate one. Only 2 members here from NRG are defending. So EU will get this information here in a moment, but that dart, oof, Doug, just a few feet short of what would have been perhaps round-winning information. And right away, Shanks popping his ult, moving it down short, getting all sorts of information for his team.
Okay, so they set up, and that early push down B long actually got them the Hunter's Fury into the hands of EU. He was 1 point away, got the ult, but the problem is right now Gen.G's in a brutal pinch. Shanks on the flank with the Dimensional Drift was able to get behind them and get the opener. Sam gets in on the action as well as Gen.G are trapped with no room to grow. There's the showstopper that's coming out of the hands of Sam. He's going to be able to clean one up as well. Gen.G's just down. Takusta, the spike is down. He's going to drop as well. Shanks continues to light up the kill feed and to light up the scoreboard for NRG as they're going to take a 5-0 lead.
All right, I know I alluded to a few different, you know, rosters that potentially could have busted out Euro in this event, and I was a little bit of an naysayer in the pregame, talking about I didn't see Yoru having a place in this event, and already, I mean, you compare this to what a Jet offer brings to the table, and I don't want to directly compare, you know, Jet to Yoru. That's not my goal here, but when it comes to Shanks and his impact on the round, I was talking about his Jet off, okay, and a little questionable when you're saying, okay, you're going from that kind of a role into, oh, now you're this like lurk flash character that can get all kinds of information for your team, make cheeky cool plays. Clearly he knows what he's doing because he's been so active throughout these rounds, having a big impact, even if it's just not fragging, right? Like that information on that flank, that threat is going to be there for Gen.G continuously on their attacking side. That is a nuisance that, you know, I feel like a lot of teams, you know, kind of differing with my own opinion here, kind of playing devil's advocate, so to speak. Like, he may be a new untested agent in a lot of ways, but he's also, you know, a lot of these teams don't have experience playing up against a Yoru that knows what he's doing in a team comp. So this could continue to be, Doug, an incredibly deadly and efficient tool for NRG.
Well, and you see how he set up his decoy footsteps through the telly into towards Hookah for the last couple of rounds, and that's forcing Gen.G to play B long, as they have a number of times. They do have that teleporter to bail out. They have no information of what's happening in Shower, so if you do that, you're running in there a bit blind. But it looks like they're committing onto the B site. Yet again, Shanks once again with the opening pick. EU able to force them back, but as quickly as the round starts, it comes to a screeching halt because Gen.G's just down to the Raze once again. It's Sean who's got a Sheriff, but he doesn't have any more health to work with. NRG continue to pile it on.
Yeah, just a simple B hit. Nothing really comes of it, unfortunately, for Gen.G. And I'll say this. You know, we're giving Yoru and specifically Shanks a lot of praise here, and certainly NRG looks like they are, you know, playing very well throughout these rounds. They're very confident in their shots, and that is scary when you're down 6-0 on the attacking side of a map. And frankly, like, even the Blade Storm there from Win, shots are just not quite clicking. Things are not quite clicking. Shots aren't hitting, rather, for the side of Gen.G. And that doesn't mean that they won't throughout, you know, the course of this series or even this map. You know, I won't say wake up, but definitely find their groove. You know, this could absolutely turn around on a dime here and be a 6-6 half in some world. But I gotta give credit where it's due. NRG is looking dominant so far, and they're dominant in a fashion where, like, Gen.G, you know, they're still making this Showers control a little bit. You know, NRG isn't contesting it; they haven't needed to. And they're not exactly telegraphing super hard. It's not as though NRG is doing something incredible over at B for information. We see, you know, a Killjoy and a Sova basically playing retake almost on the bomb site. But the A hit's coming out, and Gen.G finally lands the entries. There's 3.
There you go.
2 for Win, 1 for Michael, and everything that I just said. There it is. 2-on-5 situation, Doug.
This might be what Gen.G needs to get back into this thing. Guimon in a great spot to grab 2, but Infinite turns on him, gives him the business, and sends him home packing. Gen.G still with the numbers advantage. However, NRG does have that lockdown to clear space onto the A site, should Infinite choose to do that. But of course, as I say that, Sean cleans him up, drops things down to just EU. He's been tagged up, 70 health, severely outnumbered. He's going to drop as well. Ladies and gents, Gen.G are on the board.
And that's all it takes, really. I mean, we're talking about teams starting to feel good, get a little bit of momentum behind them, finding their confidence, finding their step. And as an individual, right, if you're hitting tab, down 6-0, like, Win would have seen last round, oh, I'm 1-6. I'm bottom fragging as a Jet. Like, what am I doing? Right there. Comes up short, finds his mark, 2 beautiful frags coming out from U-Haul, and suddenly his team's on the board. That is all it takes. One beautiful frag, 1 beautiful kill, and suddenly you're feeling, you know, confident. So for Gen.G, this is where it starts. And Shanks immediately has the opportunity with an op right now to, okay, all right, Yoru, I see you. That's pretty cute. I like that a lot. But an aggressive op, you know, immediately putting this in a 5v4 would have been devastating for Gen.G, Doug. And instead, the default, you know, this is a very kind of like timid default now where NRG is kind of forcing their hand towards A.
Yep. See, Sean managed to pick up the showstopper there. The decoy footsteps working their way down Showers. Guimon's about to realize that it was all a ruse. Nobody's actually running their way towards them. They still have a decent setup here. Win getting a big pick early on. There's that showstopper from Sean. Isn't able to blast pack the first time, but he manages to get where he wants to go the second time around. The neural theft is going to be used as well to expose where everyone is as Mikhail begins to get the plant down. This one's going to be spicy, folks. A 5v4 as the vast majority of members for both teams are still alive and they're still available to make something happen. Keep an eye on the pinch. You see members of Gen.G have already started to work their way away from the site down towards A short. And they try to fight things off because they know, there it is. The lockdown comes out to create space. They have to respect that. Dabs able to get one on the win as Guimon and Sean light things up. Sean goes in for more, but Infinite trades him out. A 3v2 in favor of Gen.G. Now the lockdown goes down. That's going to be the cue to go as Sam begins to stick the defuse. Guimon gets the first one, not able to get it as Gen.G gets another one on the board.
Wow. And, you know, it feels nice when you're a caster and teams kind of play out exactly what you're talking about. But the fact is, Win walked right up short A, took the gunfight, got the headshot. And, you know, whether or not that's critical to Gen.G finding success over here at A, you know, bottom line is NRG had 4 members over here, you know, prepared for this A push to come out. And somehow Gen.G just brawled their way up onto the site, locked it down in the post plant. 2 rounds, you know, this is this is absolutely doable for Gen.G to have a successful half here. They might not tie it up 6-6, Doug, but you know, I got to imagine that the players are starting to, you know, understand like, okay, this is where we're gonna find some success. I'm finding my step now, and we're gonna hit our shots when we need to. Good for them. This is definitely gonna be a tough answer for NRG, I think.
Yeah, I agree. They do have the dimensional drift and from the shadows to get some information, to create some space, and see what they can do. Meanwhile, Gen.G taking it nice and easy, nice and slow as they mosey their way up B long. They're going to use a drone to clear out some space and get some info. Spots 1. They have that much information, but that's a big ult orb there. That's going to give him the Hunter's Fury.
Yeah, and we'll see whether or not they opt to commit here at B. There is still Cypher Lurk over at A, so I got to imagine, okay, immediately from the shadows is sent back. Daps is back in U-Haul now. But with 4 players from Gen.G, 3 of which, actually all 4 of which are nearby that teleporter, let's be curious whether or not NRG is going to give them a peek. There's the Hunter's Fury coming out from Michael. He doesn't find anything immediately, only a few tags onto his teammates. And so, as we see Shanks and Sam, I believe, both pushing out of hookah, this play is about to get blown up. Michael falls, and suddenly, Gen.G's in a world of pain.
Yeah, but look at how aggressively they've taken elbow control. They've worked their way all the way up, so they know there's not going to be any pressure coming in from that side. They are relatively safe from that regard, but you've got to keep an eye on Shanks and the rest of NRG as they try to mosey their way in through hookah. Guimon's going to get tagged up early on. There's that dimensional drift. Shanks is getting all sorts of information on where the players are. Nice crossfire from EU there. That was absolutely huge as Gen.G falls apart, as the round should go in favor of NRG yet again.
Oh no, I really thought we were about to see, and we didn't quite catch it, thankfully. But Kusta was on a 200 IQ lurk into hookah after, you know, the likes of NRG had cleared mid, pushed down towards market, and kind of like retreated back into hookah knowing it was a B play. He almost had a 3-piece in front of him, and I believe it was Infinite was wise to it, turned around, immediately took the gunfight. And Kusta falls, who, you know, we've seen him kind of have some impact in the early rounds without much success for his team. So, you know, that was a moment right there where we could have seen him shine. Unfortunately for Gen.G, they're immediately put back down into the losing side of things. However, things aren't quite, you know, adrift too far. There's still 3 rounds left to play in this half, and they have a full buy coming out now. So, you know, you don't have a whole lot to work with when it comes to ultimates. But I think for Gen.G, right, like you found success towards A, and you're looking, you know, to round out this half with pressure towards B. NRG is not being shy about over-rotating, stacking towards bomb sites, and they're finding early information at least most of the time. So, you know, with a deep trip at showers, with, you know, I believe that's a turret at short, right? Anyway.
No, those are nanoswarms in the alarm.
Okay. I don't know, actually.
Yes, the utilities there.
Fair. The point being is, you know, Gen.G is not really worried about this. I mean, look at the minimap right now, Doug.
Yeah, look at Shanks.
You have Shanks just immediately getting greedy on the flank, and this is what I'm talking about. If you're getting this information early, and you know Gen.G is not faking, not taking CPs, not doing anything, Shanks is already here.
Oh,
and
the paranoia there. The paranoia there was huge. It hit 5, and then EU and Sam get in on it as well. But Gen.G shove right into the belly of the beast, and they work their way onto the site. It's just left up to EU in a 1v3. The spike's going to go down as well. Look, this is difficult, but it's not impossible. If you can isolate these gunfights, there's no Hunter's Fury to possibly cause problems. This is certainly a winnable situation. That's certainly going to help. He's not able to get it. However, Mikhail cleans him up. Gen.G take the adversity, they take it in the jaw, and they punch right back.
That is 2 caster curses in a row out of me, man. I'm like, the flank's coming in. This is going to be sick. And immediately just gets turned on. Shanks shut down. The site falls so quickly, and the spike gets planted before NRG really even has a chance to respond on the frag sheet. So, you know, Gen.G found their footing a few rounds ago, Doug. And certainly it's been towards A each and every time. However, you know, I got to imagine that at some point, NRG with their over-rotations, with their greedy pushes, okay, right there, the long B play comes out, and Win is ready this time. Last time we saw that, he was sitting there with a Vandal and didn't opt for the fight, but you know, you have the operator in hand, may as well hold, see what happens, and there it is. They are rewarded. Shanks falls, and 5v4. Great start to the closing rounds of this half.
Take flight. Win doesn't get enough love. He really doesn't. As an opper, he's not going to be the one that is constantly lighting up the scoreboard, but he does his job so dang well, and in my opinion, is underappreciated in the professional Valorant scene. Take a look at how Gen.G are playing this out now. Knowing they have the numbers advantage, they're going to work their way in through A. They already have U-Haul control. They don't have any vision. They don't have any knowledge of what's happening over in Shower, so keep a close eye on the two members of NRG just around the corner. Infinite's able to get one, hits him with a little sidestep to see if he gets any info, and they continue to work their way onto the site. Gen.G continuing to take space away. Sean has to come up big here. EU, however, gets that duel. Drops things down to a 3v3 as Infinite continues to push in. He was on the flank the entire time. He catches both of them. He gets a 3K, and they're going to get the defuse. NRG looks so good on this half.
Wow. I can recall myself saying at the beginning of this map, you know, Infinite is one of those guys where he's relatively quiet throughout a game. You don't see a lot of huge impact plays, at least from the observer side of things. You know, it's subtle, whatever impact he does have. Right there, he made a few gutsy calls to push through that dark cover, flank U-Haul, gets the frags on a win, and essentially does the retake all by himself. But, you know, hats off there to the patience, really, of NRG, and then knowing, like, okay, all our pieces are in place, let's just go ahead and push. Infinite wraps around, finds 2 huge kills, and maybe 3, but the point being, that Showers not being in control of Gen.G on their attack has, you know, come to bite them in their hind parts more than once now. So I gotta expect there. Okay, right here, they're immediately going towards Shower control. Not gonna make the same mistake twice.
Look at Sam pushing up. Again, understanding where that weakness was. This time pushing into it, and they're drawing out so much utility. Like, you've seen the paint shells have already come out. Roomba came out as well. That's no longer a factor.
Exactly, and we spoke to it earlier on in this half, where the Showers control is going to kind of like have the underlying theme of, you know, whether or not they're going to pressure NRG to use utility that they don't have, whether or not Gen.G can get Showers control successfully. They've been denied here. You know, we talk about the utility, that's great, but they still don't have control of it. So at best, on this A hit coming out from Gen.G, you can only really hope for a GMD lurk, you know, maybe being able to backstab these players that are in Showers, but, you know, ultimately, actually, as I say that, NRG thinks they have the read, but here it is, Steps! Omen on Omen crime outside Showers, finds the lurk, and the jig is up. And Michael immediately pops Hunter's Fury to clear Showers because this is suddenly a big liability, but Win with a Blade Storm, finding one on Assam. 4-on-4 now, he's even things up.
I love how Gen.G played this. Lex, they cut noise. That was all they did. They cut noise and NRG went over to B, and that's when they strike. That's how they got in this position where they're just on the cusp of getting us to an 8-4 half. It's just one left on the side of NRG. Dabs managed to get 3, but Mikhail cleans him up to take us to an 8-4 halftime. NRG looked good, but Gen.G refused to go away. Folks, we're going to cut to a very quick break at half. When we return, the culmination of Find. Don't go anywhere.
money in the bank. Got the money in the bank. Got the money in the bank.
Welcome back, folks. Just enough time to grab a quick refresher, a little bit of water, and get back into the action. And that's exactly where we start. Gen.G works their way right up A short. I love that aggression early on. They're able to get 3. Guimon gets the 4th. Dab's the last one standing, but the damage has been done. Gen.G show that aggression early on, and they put NRG in shambles, Lex.
Doug, what is your favorite pistol and why is it the Frenzy? Oh, hold on. Daps with a rebuttal frag, but GMG cleans it up. That was the least tactical pistol round I've ever seen. Ooh. And what a round it was. Just send it up short. Both teams, all 5 frenzies. We're good. We'll figure it out.
It was full send. And you talk about, I'm going to ease us back in from break, and we had a chance to grab a refresher. No, they just blew it up on us.
Madness. Truly. And I know, amongst the pro scene, I kind of have a reputation as somebody who's being loud about my displeasure with some things in this game in the past. No. Sometimes games, take a little bit to flesh out their mechanics and balance, whatever. But the Frenzy has been drawing some ire from the pro scene in recent weeks, and I feel like people are getting really good with it. Yeah. And that pistol round was a testament to that, where it can get messy. It can get almost frustrating to watch because there's so much going on. But Shanks, right, immediately finding one with his Frenzy on the Kusta. You hold.
One enemy remaining.
Yeah, like clockwork. Nice. Use the utility from Sean there to get one. NRG just down to EU. He's going to run for the fences. Lex, I'd love your thoughts on this. As you have a professional background in both Valorant and in Counter-Strike. You're insanely intelligent about the game, and I'm not just saying this to fluff you up. I do genuinely respect you and the way you think about the game.
Thanks,
with the recent nerfs to run and gun, for the rifles in particular, do you feel like that maybe accentuates or maybe adds more oomph to the frenzy in situations like that? Or you could have the same conversation for the Stinger, perhaps?
Oh, for sure. And this isn't necessarily my opinion exclusively. It's something that I think I've seen this sentiment several times where, the rifles, as Riot slowly starts to unify the game mechanics and move towards, a system of rules, I guess, for the weaponry in the game that makes sense both for casuals, pro players, and certainly TAC FPS enthusiasts. It's going to be difficult, and it's going to take time to strike that balance. So yeah, to your point, dialing back the efficacy of your rifles means SMGs are getting an inadvertent buff. It means pistols, especially ones where you're moving when you're shooting, are absolutely going to get an inadvertent buff. And it may not be, Riot's intent to be doing that specifically, but as we tinker with the ecosystem of game mechanics and otherwise, that's going to be a consistent, I won't call it an issue, but it's certainly something that as casters we can talk about. And right away we're into the action. Already at a 3-on-3 on this bonus for Gen.G.
Yeah, and I like how Gen.G tried playing this, knowing that they were on the bonus, they were still bringing SMG. So you try to, what you do is you try to close the gap there, knowing that the opponent has the rifle, which by and large should give you the advantage. You remove what gives them that advantage, and that's distance, right? So they just full send down B long, try to get up close and personal, but unfortunately they were sitting there waiting for it, and they just got mowed. Yeah, the kills got traded, drops things down to a 3v3, but at this point the spike hasn't made its way anywhere, Lex.
Yeah, and I think, to some degree, you have this Yoru in the comp, and we're going to see what Shanks can do with him in the team sense. But certainly, being willing to make these aggressive lurks, find some openings, and Kusta shuts it down with his Stinger, is maybe something that we're going to see out of Shanks throughout this half. But right here we have NRG, final 2 members coming out of this long B area, and they're actually going to put the spike down without being contested at all. So wisely waiting for the rotations to come in is Gen.G, and this will be a 3-on-2 retake Doug.
Yeah, they're trying to clear up, work their way through elbow. EU, the tip of the spear, he's going to spot one, but he's going to get caught. He's going to get smacked in the face, and he's going to get taken out. Gen.G on the bonus, able to deal with the firepower that NG brought to the gun, to the round, and are going to take another one. That's going to bridge the gap down to 1. Lex, 1 round. Remember what we were at half. Gen.G have looked like a different beast.
Yeah, and I think, when it we're talking about bind specifically and winning the pistol, cleaning up your anti-ecos. That 6-0 scoreline may have looked a little bit weighted, you know, in terms of just how the match was actually going. Gen.G didn't have many opportunities to really, like, you know, I'll say didn't hit their shots maybe, but ultimately we're getting shut down by great play from NRG. So, you know, the momentum has certainly shifted, and we highlighted it a couple times where, you know, seemingly confidence is now flowing through the veins of Gen.G, and here we are, as you're saying, a slimmer margin than before, and already some B aggression coming out from NRG.
Yeah, they worked their way all the way really into hookah at this point. See a couple of flashes to create some space, and Gen.G kind of have to respect it a bit. But Sean anchoring things down, able to get one already. They also still have octagon control, so if the push comes up be long, as their posture, they should be able to handle it just fine. Mikhail's able to get two, as members of Gen.G are still anchored onto the site. NRG's just down to a couple of members left. Now they could have tellied out, but they drop before he even gets a chance. Mikhail with a three-piece on the round. It's just down to EU. Flawless at the hands of Gen.G, excuse me, and boy oh boy are they clicking.
Yeah, and for NRG, you know, we were singing the high praises of the Yoru on defense. I think, right, you know, when we're getting into these gun rounds right now, where there is, I won't say an infinite number because that would be a really dumb play on words, but certainly there is an innumerable amount. Certainly from my own personal perspective, I have not seen the limits at which you could push a Yoru in a team setting, right? And so my big question mark and my big, you know, hesitation to say that it's a good idea is I really don't know. Like, can Shanks find a big impact here in the way that, you know, he might on a Jet? And certainly I think, you know, right away in this round, forfeiting that showers control towards a Jet opera, this is so dangerous if you're Shanks in this position. He's just wisely massive roll. Spread default from NRG, Doug.
Oh,
and
no.
almost.
Dude, you called it, right? It was there. Win had a chance, and he probably should have been dead to rights there, but the shot goes just a bit wide. No blood was shed. The round will continue as it started. NRG have stacked the vast majority of the resources all the way up A. The gate crash is going to work his way up to give them some U-Haul control, but Mikhail with the Hunter's Fury trying to get some. He is able to tag up one as Infinite drops. Numbers advantage in favor of Gen.G.
Taking that shadow step away instead. Trading frags out in front of showers. Win is just continuing to be this major nuisance in the A push, right? Like,
wow.
Even with Daps in heaven, there's just no way to get the spike down decisively without EU shutting him down with a headshot, Doug.
Yeah, you jinxed
Master's curse again, man.
You're like 0 for 3 there. Gen.G with the numbers advantage, and it continues to pile on. Sean uses a showstopper to get another one. Sam trades one out, but Mikhail puts all doubt away as Gen.G, folks, they're going to take a one-round lead. You talked about confidence. You talked about them feeling themselves, whether the composition from Yoru is enough on the attacking side. Whatever it is, Gen.G have proven that they're not going anywhere on bind.
Right. And, you know, calling on the caster's first one more time, but win over there in showers. Okay. Right. Like, if you're on the attacking side of NRG, even if it's not an opera, but it was in this instance, so we'll talk about it like this. If he is, you know, in the far corner of showers and you do not have control of short necessarily, and you're trying to come into an A hit, the bottom line is Shanks, you know, with whatever, you know, your utility you have at your disposal, you're going to need to bust it out to push him back and make a play on him, right? But Win, rocksteady as ever, just stayed alive for as long as he could, found a kill, and certainly was a thorn in the side of an attacking NRG, and right away, coming up short as Somebody falls to Kusta, Doug.
He doesn't even get a chance to fire it off. They had everything they wanted, but they dropped. They managed to get onto the site anyway, and now it's on Gen.G to rip it right back. Guiman able to get 2, looking for more as they fight to take U-Haul control back. Gen.G has the numbers advantage here. EU has a chance, but all he has is a Spectre Lex that's so devastating.
Not a whole lot to be done here, Daps. Doing what he can to maybe kind of frag or two, but shut down by Sean. And I gotta ask you, Doug, and this is just, you know, we're sitting up here from the peanut gallery, so chat, take this with a grain of salt. But is that greedy to push all the way to pipes with showstopper, not really knowing what's clear and what's not? And I didn't catch it. There may have been, the dart may have cleared all of back sight successfully. I didn't actually pay attention to the entire execute. I was more focused on the fact that, you know, he was getting shot in the side of the head with a stinger. But man, that's heartbreaking.
It is, and look, this people may disagree with me here, but I firmly believe that if you manage to get U-Haul control, it behooves you to try to get Pipes control as well. Because if you manage to get that, you're forcing all of the retake resources in really through showers, right? Because you're not going to be able to get in through spawn to establish having control. There's no room for you to work with there. It takes so much wind out of the retake sales. I strongly, much like Elbow in my opinion over by B site, that's a very important choke point that if the attacking team can control, it just takes so much away from the defender. So I like it. Obviously it's risky because you're getting all the way in there.
Right.
But if you can establish that, you're golden.
Yeah, and I only ask that because I'm just like, you know, sometimes I see players who are able to get that Pipes control, as you're saying, and just essentially dominate the round.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh, we had the spike plant for free, right? Like you have 5 players alive and suddenly you're a man down. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
But regardless of whether or not we're being critical of it, I just was like, I don't know what I'd think in that situation as a player. But here we are. Sam onto Sean, Raze on Raze. 4v4 now.
Oh, so the spike is down, but they had control of A. It got traded back out. As Guman gets one, I honestly miss who got the other kill. But they had hookah control. They had A site control. They didn't commit to either because the spike was back in spawn, and now they're going to have to redo it again.
And NRG is getting really stumped. I mean, there's no other way to put this. They are getting outmaneuvered, I think, on their attacking side here. And even when they're finding some success either over at showers or it's almost like they're moving too quickly, you know, even with whatever fakes they're throwing and whatever they're reacting to, they just aren't all on the same page right now. And despite the heroics of EU and now Sam at U-Haul, this is a 1-on-3.
Love the use of the dart there to work around the Omen smoke to get the information that he needed. Sam had a chance to do something special there, but Kusta, the man you called out at the beginning of the series, gets a hat trick to put the round away for Gen.G. They're not stopping, Lex. They're not.
Yeah, and I really think that, you know, when we're talking about Gen.G as a roster, take them out of this matchup here for a second. Like, they have an incredible lineup. Like, this 5 is very are all talented, all experienced players, and certainly, you know, they've already shown that they can compete at the highest level. So for Kusta, you know, not to beat a dead horse, so to speak, but I can't stress enough how his impact has been, you know, I won't say understated, maybe, because it is, I mean, he's new to this lineup. We've only seen him in one event prior to here, but he's been consistent. He's somebody who I think you can at least, at this point, count on him to deliver. And now, 11-8, Gen.G up by 3, sitting on a cushion, Doug, moving into this round here.
Yeah, keep an eye on the lockdown in the hands of NRG. Infinite could use that to create some space and try to get onto a site. They've got rifles to work with, so they should have a little bit of room to make something happen and stop the bleeding. Lex, it's been 7 rounds in a row here. They've got to get something going.
You wonder what the solution is. They've been patient on their defaults, Doug, and I think they've gotten a decent amount of info and map control, but Yoru ult comes out.
Yeah, but it's a B hit. It's a B hit the entire way. They send the Yoru ult, the decoys, the drone all the way at base short. But look at where the spike is. They're going to get kills on A, but I love how disciplined Sean is being here. They're just waiting it out. They know where it is. They also have, guarding control. I got caught up there as things were kind of unraveling. So they stayed disciplined. They were able to read them like a book. There's that lockdown, but you wonder, Gen.G still has the numbers advantage here. They're sitting pretty.
Yeah, and the ace in the hole is certainly Sova and Hookah rocking the Hunter's Fury in the 3-on-4. You're at a disadvantage, Doug, but you know they still have a really good chance of taking this round. And Gen.G solid on their retakes up till now. Sean actually gets detained over there at elbow. Oof.
Things you hate to see. Kusta gets one. Daps trades it out. Okay.
Okay, Daps.
Yeah, go on then, man.
Old man
go
still
on.
got it. That's a 10-4 dinosaur. 3K coming out from Daps. 11-9, and you know, maybe this is what they were missing in terms of being able to survive throughout their default, get a decent read, and run something together. I mean, the round started with kind of a Shanks, I won't call it a fail, but definitely got outplayed over there at U-Haul, right? So an interesting look for Yoru on this attack side that we haven't seen until now, obviously, but gotta wonder whether or not there's any more tricks up his sleeve, because he's been pretty well handled by Gen.G on his attack side.
I mean, he lit things up. I think it was like 13-2 at one point in the first half, but certainly a much more mild, much more tempered performance here in the closing half of Bind. Gen.G, again, a 2-round lead. They've got the Hunter Siri. They have the Blade Storm as well. On the side of Gen.G in a pretty vanilla way to approach the round defensively so far. 2 at B, 2 at A. They're giving up some of that Showers control, but they've got the Crossfire on it, and they have the Sova close by back by spawn. So I like this setup. We'll just see what NRG can do with it.
Yeah, and wise to it, Gen.G floating that rotate in defender spawn is definitely going to pay off. And the second you get any kind of hard contact over at B, whether or not it's this drone right now, Win cleans that up, and we'll immediately know, okay, there are multiple players aggressing up along B. The rotation's already here, Doug.
There they are. Right.
Again, keep in mind, they do have the Hunter's Fury, but they've worked their way onto the
30
site.
seconds left.
Sean has a chance for something here on elbow. Once again, when you wait this long, if things go sideways, they're done. Mikhail's going to use that Hunter's Fury to try to tag up, get some information. Not able to get any kills, but did deal some damage. EU still trying to stick the plant.
Spike
It's still a
planted.
5v5, folks. This thing's going to be bloody. Sean holding this angle down, and I love how NRG play this. They get the spike down. You already see a couple of members back off because they have the 100 feet of their own. Well, they had it. EU drops. NRG's able to get one. It gets traded back out. NRG's just down to 3. Sam trying to fire through the smoke, trying to keep back the defenses of Gen.G as they try to get this site down. Keep a close eye on NRG's members right now. They have B-long control. They have hookah control as well, but they've got to bust
Last player standing.
here. Gen.G
One enemy
picking
remaining.
them apart. It's just going to drop things to 1v1. Dabs through the smokes, gets a 3K, and wins the round for NRG.
Okay, that's fun to watch. I mean, that was so back and forth that entire round. A 5v5 post plant never fails to deliver. It's either the most ridiculous round you ever watch, or it's the most intense one. And Daps, another 3-piece, clutching out the round for NRG. He is going huge in this second half for NRG. And you know, just a few rounds ago, you know, we're speaking towards, you know, NRG maybe didn't have answers, maybe wasn't finding the holes that were open from Gen.G, and now they're exploding it 2 rounds in a row. And, you know, the economic advantage is still there for them, but they have an opportunity now to break the money almost of Gen.G with a round win. So this is a very important round for both sides, though.
This is indeed, I mean, you kind of, without getting too far ahead of ourselves here, this round has the potential to decide the map in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So we'll see how things pan out. No deep gate crash, nothing fancy coming. Oh, of course, as I say that, you see him use it on the mini-map. He should get all the way back towards A unless it gets caught. It looks like it did get caught there. We'll see whether or not he was willing to take that. It looks like NRG wants to go A short here.
Yeah, and Gen.G has not fought for shower control very often since they showed the jet over there early. Win has the long B info, but it doesn't matter. NRG is pressing this A attack, Doug.
Sam's going to go in with the showstopper. Blast comes up, doesn't spot anyone, but he is able to get one. But Kusta has 4. Lex, as he picks NRG apart. It's just down to Daps. Now, Daps had some heroics, but it's not going to happen this time around. Ladies and gents, Gen.G rise from the disastrous first half that was the first 6 rounds and get to match point.
Wow, the man's a gamer. You know, he's 18 and 13. He's got a solid scoreline, but that aside, Kusta has had some impact rounds in this game, and you know, I sang his praises in the pregame, much to I think chat's chagrin, but frankly, he's a gamer, dude. Like Doug, I really think Kusta is going to be regarded as one of the better players in NA given time. So for him to step up in that round, like you said, could be the game-deciding round of this match. You know, he delivers. Showstopper immediately down short. Sean finds one on Infinite. And now NRG's chances of winning this game are just getting decimated, Doug.
Yeah, they went from slim to almost none here very quickly. Couple of early picks, couple of early ultimate usage, and that gets them exactly what they want. A narrow miss there from Win, but again, Gen.G has full control here. They have the numbers advantage. They're pushing NRG around here. They're forcing them to play on Gen.G's pace.
Yeah, and honestly, this half is broken down for NRG in a few different ways that we'll talk about in a second, but the short push is coming out. They got a 3-on-5 scenario on map point. The spike must be planted here. There's no going back off of this, and immediately Sean finds the first, Goose to the second. Now it's you in a 1v4, Doug.
I have the spike.
Okay. So he manages to get one. He's got the spike. He doesn't have any armor to work with. Has some utility, but this is a tough spot to be in. See if he takes a telly out and tries to flip the map. But again, there is a member of Gen.G on the opposite side as well, so it's not like that's safe either.
Defenders win.
All right, real quick, before we cut to break, you mentioned that you wanted to talk a bit more about that half and how things went sideways for NRG. Talk to me, Lex. What do you got?
I wonder whether or not it stems from the Yoru pick that we have been talking about this entire game, but their default was not effective. And what I mean by that is anytime that they were fighting for control at either Showers or Long B, it seemed like Gen.G was either had an answer for it or was getting information on the other side of the map quick enough to respond to it. And they had their rotations in the right place. So I won't necessarily say that it was an agent comp reason as to why they maybe came up short on that attack half, but certainly they didn't seem like they were able to push back Gen.G at any point. Win was a threat with that op consistently. And even when they were able to kind of get their, noses in the dirt, so to speak, and actually get up in the defenses of Gen.G, it almost seemed like NRG just didn't have a follow through. They'd find an opening here and get shut down somewhere else. So, there's a lot that I think you can go over looking back at that VOD, when it comes to map 2 though, mental reset, and I'm anxious to see whether or not we're going to see more Yoru, Doug.
Yeah, we'll see. I think I won't say that. We'll see what they have in store, folks. Map 1 goes in favor of Gen.G, but NRG, as they've proven since the roster's been formed, that they don't go away easily. We'll see how things pan out for the rest of the series. We're going to cut to a very quick break. When we return, map 2 between these two squads. We'll be right back.
What sound experience would you like today?
I'll have the fantasy pack.
Good choice.
And could you make it a Cloud 2 wireless?
On his way, sir.
Sounds amazing.
I feel like I need to defend my scene's honor here, because this is just turning into a bit of a dogpile.
Like in groups, always look.
I'm cutting you off here. I'm cutting you off. Cutting you off. He said G2's winning it. He said G2's winning it.
We need to wait till the next EU tournament, which could be in about 10 years now.
Take it with like a grain of salt,
No,
but
that's
that
no
being
fun.
said...
Take it super literally.
Spike defused.
Oh, baby. Contrast stitching. Curves that'll hug your body. Adjustable arms. Custom embroidery. Memory foam pillows. Changeable color inserts. Lay flat, recline. Removable logos. Soft, durable material. Yeah. Like what you see, baby? Zip chair.